Hello and welcome to the Mighty's Facebook Live pages. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you're here.
I'm absolutely stoked to be here.
I am stoked to be here too. And we've got some really mighty pages. So I'm going to start off reading them. They include chronic illness, chronic pain, chronic warrior, chronic fatigue. I'm fatigued.
I am fatigued listening to you list these off, but I'm going to pick it up from here. I've got the cancer page. We got the mental health page. PTSD. Every day is a mental health day.
Amen.
Amen to that. And we must be doing something right because we're on their flagship page, the Mighty site.
That's mighty.
There you go. Welcome to our show. It's called the Pain Cancer Connection, and we're so glad that you're here. Yes.
We are. And I am, as I mentioned, I'm really glad to be here. We're going to find out who you are shortly. I am Cynthia Toussaint, and I am the co-host of this 45-minute segment of the Pain Cancer Connection. Yeah. I'm also going to try to top you here. I'm also the founder and spokesperson at the nonprofit For Grace, where we help women with high-impact, persistent pain. Okay, take a shot.
We do indeed. I am John Garrett, and I am the director of the aforementioned organization, and I am the co-host of the aforementioned show. So there you are.
Okay, that's so impressive.
Thank you. I thought so. That's why I said it. Yep.
Okay, so if you're recognizing us, I'm kind of hoping they are. It's because we've been doing another show here about how trauma very often leads to chronic illness, all kinds of chronic illness. And we have decided that for the rest of 2021, we are going to shift gears. And that's interesting coming from a guy who never learned to drive a stick, but just had to put that in. And we're shifting gears and going back to the Pain Cancer Connection because it's a really great topic. And also because last month during Pain Awareness Month, For Grace hosted our 10th annual Women in Pain Conference, the Pain Cancer Connection. So that fits right in.
Pain Cancer, it was amazing day, amazing presenters. It was a phenomenal day.
From start to finish.
Education and awareness.
Hello, South Africa. Woo!
South Africa.
Great.
Coming in. Fammy. So, but on this show, that also has the name, the Pain Cancer Connection, not to be confused with the conference. We'll be exploring how pain and cancer can be overlapping concerns, illnesses, but for instance, chronic pain and its inflammation can lead to cancer. And unfortunately, cancer treatment can often lead to persistent pain.
As I know well. And the reason that we're both fascinated by the link between pain and cancer is personal.
Indeed.
It's October, so another anniversary for me. I have been a woman in pain now for 39 years. And last year, 2020, was a big year
39 years
for everyone. But I survived triple negative breast cancer. So what did you do last year?
I didn't do nearly that amount. But for those 39 years, I have been your day-to-day caregiver. So I've got some involvement here.
Oh, my goodness. And so I guess you could say we have a lot of skin in the pain cancer game.
Man, I have got so much skin in this game. I am chafing. I am flaking. So if anybody has an idea on a moisturizer, please send it over. I'll be happy to hear from you.
So I've been putting up with this for 41 years. You can take it for 45
It's just going to keep going like this.
So I want to just mention that, gosh, we love the Mighty for so many reasons. It's kind of a bittersweet time because things are changing, but it's going to be all good. Yes. But the number one reason is all of you watching. You guys and dolls are, you know what? I'm just going to say it. You're badasses.
There's a whole ocean of badassery out there. So please bring in your comments and questions as the show goes on.
We like this show to be interactive, and we'd love to take them. So chronic pain, RSD. I get it.
Right.
Okay, me too. Me too. So you get to introduce our guest today.
Okay,
You're so overwhelmed.
I'm just done by the whole thing. I mean, so. Before I introduce our amazing guest, Pat Wetzel.
Pat Wetzel.
I just want to mention that Pat closed our 10th annual Women in Pain Conference, and she did it with an amazing bow. So I just want to tell everybody, you can see Pat's presentation. You can see the whole darn thing, a webcast replay of the conference at our For Grace's YouTube channel. Or you can go to our For Grace homepage at forgrace.org.
So wait a minute. So to see this amazing conference,
the whole
you just have to go, the whole dang thing, or part of it, because anyway, I'll get to that. But you just have to go to For Grace's YouTube page or our homepage, which is named for my aunt, For Grace. Right. It's just as it sounds, FORGRACE.org. And one cool thing about this, our first virtual conference, is that with the archive, you can just jump to whatever presentation you want to see. So and then you can watch them over again.
If you want to see Pat's, it's listed there. You just
Hi, Rich Tamayo. I love you. I'm sorry, John.
Speak of the devil.
Right, good to see you, Rich. Oh my gosh. Rich is with TVP Live. He is the founder of TVP Live, and he webcasts. Oh my gosh, it's so good to have you here, Rich.
If anybody wants a tip on how to view the conference,
I've been trying to get Rich to be a guest here. So guys, talk him into it.
Rich into it. Oh, okay. Well, geez, so without further ado, here we go. Pat Wetzel's original background after graduating from Wharton Business School was in finance.
Who knew?
Who knew? Working in direct placement market in New York.
Pat knew, right?
Pat probably knew.
But she didn't tell us.
But more recently, she has been involved with a number of startups, including her current one, the Cancer Road Trip, which includes her amazing podcast, Bump in the Road. I encourage everyone to check out Bump in the Road.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
However, but in 2009, a supposedly incurable cancer diagnosis sent Pat on a serious quest for what creates health. She realized that her experiences were not unique, and she founded the Anti-Cancer Club, a free website of cancer resources, and it is amazing. I checked it out recently. It's fantastic. Okay, 3 rounds of chemo, radiation, and surgery.
That's so amazing. Wow.
Over the next several years until a remission was realized. Hello. It was time for a break, though. It was time for a road trip. And along the way, there were many lessons to be learned. One is that travel heals. Pat is our guide to a bit of healing adventures. So there we go.
So I love that. And Pat wrote it herself. So that being said, welcome Pat Wetzel to the Pain Cancer Connection. There you are in New Mexico. Hi. So good to see you. You look so beautiful today and every day. And we have 100 questions that we want to ask. And I want to ask you. So we're going to kind of
whittle it down a bit.
A little bit. But I want to just jump right in and ask you to tell us a little bit about your life before cancer.
Well, that's a great question. I was fairly oblivious, actually.
Interesting.
Gotta start somewhere. Yeah.
Well, but I had a good life. I was very active. I was a pilot. I did a lot of hiking and kayaking and skiing. And cancer really changed things. It made me just stop dead in my tracks and ask myself, what was I doing? And since I had numerous years of treatments and whatnot, I had a lot of time to think about it.
Time to think. So most people don't get a serious cancer diagnosis like lymphoma and decide to start a nonprofit with that information. And that is so inspirational, and it's really not very common. And I'm wondering, how that works. How do you go from, I would assume from my own experience, reeling from a really scary diagnosis to helping other people?
Well, part of it for me was absolute frustration. I was told, you're going to be in treatment the rest of your life. You have incurable cancer. And I felt the whole experience left me feeling so out of control. And I really wanted control of something. So I started doing homework and I started researching things. And I thought, how can I find some control in this crazy situation? And that's really how Anti-Cancer Club was born. And as I started researching and talking to people and interviewing people, for me, control really boiled down to 4 things. I could control what I ate, what I did, what I thought, and how I reacted to things. And that started to form a foundation for a lot of change in my life, quite honestly. Prior to that, I think I'd been, like a lot of people, just involved in my day-to-day life, very reactive. But this caused me to pause and really think about how I approached things. What did I control? And I think that for many of us, an experience like cancer or chronic pain starts to sharpen our empathy skills.
Wow, great answer. I never really understood you. I'm understanding you so well from that answer. That's really interesting. I was thinking about control recently because I just had scanxiety and had to go through literally the month of, oh God, it's coming. And then they always find something, because I didn't do things the way that they wanted. I didn't do the follow-up surgery, that the standard of care, and it usually shows that you're fine. And I didn't do that because I have CRPS, and they always find something to make me nervous to do the surgery, which they did again. I knew they would.
Sure.
But then, and then I didn't sleep for about 4 nights, and now I feel better. But so much of it is about, we were just talking about that, finding control sort of in the chaos, because I feel like the medical, I've been very open about this, the medical community, Western care anyway, I feel like it's so fear-based, especially cancer care. Because if they say, oh, that lymph node looks big, even if it's not, you're going to go, oh, I could die. I better go do everything that they tell me to do. Right. And so much of our care when we're seriously ill, I think has to be I think we have to have control of it. I think we are responsible for our own wellness. And actually, my integrative doctor said to me, you're the only person in my entire career who's taken control of your cancer care. And he was so disappointed that others didn't do that. So I just think that I kind of went another way, but I think that control is so important for all of us, but especially if we're living with chronic illness. And what a horrible thing that your doctor said that you had an incurable cancer. I mean, I'm sorry, that's so naive. It's just such a brutal,
defeating right off the bat.
How did you even find hope after you were told that?
I was pretty stunned. I just found myself sucked into the medical system. And it was not a pleasant experience. For example, I went down to Stanford, and there was a wonderful young doctor at Stanford who was finishing his fellowship. And he told me essentially, look, you need 11 options. We only have 7. You have to hope that science comes up with something for you. And I thought, passive hoping doesn't sound like a real good strategy to me. But I also had a very large tumor on my left side of my face. And I was trying to put off doing chemo as long as possible. And actually it applied to some clinical trials, and that's another story. But this tumor, I wanted this tumor gone. And lymphoma is very sensitive to radiation. So he said, do 4 gray times 2, gray being the unit of radiation, do it twice. Okay, 4 gray times 2. I wrote this down. I go back up into the Tahoe area where I was living, and I talked to a radiation oncologist who insists I do 35 units of gray 17 times. Absolutely insists. Wow. She refuses to talk to the doctor at Stanford. She refuses to get a consult. She refuses to open her mind to anything other than her narrow, limited information that she had. And I fought her. I eventually won. She never talked to me after that. She never followed up on my care. So I mean, it was just, and of course, 4x2, the tumor went away. It just astonished me. And it's just typical that you have to fight and advocate for yourself at every turn. And if you're not and if you're not informed, and if you don't keep questing for information, you will not be in a good place.
Very well said. Here, that's what we've learned. And I was stunned that the doctors were stunned that we always did our research and that we always pushed back. I mean, almost always. There was a reason to push back. I mean, I really fought to do lower and slower dosing. I would just leave I can't think what those doctors were called. There was but certain kinds of oncologists, the ones who do the chemo, medical oncologists, I would just leave. It's if you're not going to do lower and slower dosing, then that's not okay. I'm afraid you might kill me. And I just was kind of blown away at how much I had to be my own advocate. I'm used to that. But man, if I hadn't done pain for 37 years prior to cancer, I think I would have been a kind of a typical patient saying, do whatever you need to do. I don't want to hear anything about it. Just save me. And so that's just a shame that more people don't know that. And don't feel more confident with their own choices, and that the doctors don't really respect our choices. They talk about they tout individualized care, but their individualized care is the way they do it. That's it.
Individual to them. That you have to take spoon-fed by.
It's hard. You get slammed with a diagnosis, and You want to depend on somebody. You want somebody to lead you through this. And if you're naive at the beginning, you won't be for long. But if you're naive at the beginning, you want to rely on that doctor to say, do this, do that. You want them to be right. But they're people. There's a lot of variation in all this. There's variation among people and how they react to things. And there really is no single path.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. Well said.
Excellent, Pat. So, and this is kind of on the same tone of what I think we're talking about. My question to you is, most people despise uncertainty and change. It's amazing. You seem to thrive with these things. So what is the power in your mind, the power of uncertainty and change?
Oh, uncertainty has so much power, and it's great. It is not always easy to embrace. It is not always easy to live through. But if you can just be in the moment and be in that moment of uncertainty, it's a moment of possibility. Anything can happen. You can go any direction. You're not held by the past. You're not pulled by the future. You're just in the moment. And I think learning to live with uncertainty opens up so much power to you and so many doors that otherwise would remain closed. If we stay in the status quo, we're never going to go anywhere.
Right. Risk.
Really good point.
Not to be so risk adverse, because it does limit your choices from that point on.
Pat, do you practice mindfulness meditation?
Actually, I practice transcendental meditation.
Okay. Because that sounds, what you're saying sounds a lot like the mindfulness meditation that I practice. Just being in the moment. You can't have a breath from, you can't live in anxiety of the future, and you can't live in the depression of the past. You're living right now, and that's where you find peace. I love that.
Yeah.
So
and I think it's counterintuitive. People living with change and uncertainty. Again, I guess it's right, provokes fear, anxiousness, but it can be the flip side. It can be exhilarating, and it can be expanding also.
I don't like to a point, I want to know what's going to happen next, but not really. I mean, it's because life can get so boring.
And I think
we've never really had it be like that.
Exactly. Right.
It's interesting. I'm working on a book from my podcast, Bump in the Road, and I'm pulling out some of the major themes of people. It's about people who hit a bump in the road and use it as a pivot into a more conscious and meaningful life. And one of the themes that I just love that comes out of Bump is just say yes. So many people say, just say yes. Say yes to uncertainty. Say yes to change. Say yes to opportunity. Say yes to doing something different. It may take you amazing places.
It can't be too bad.
Yes.
That sounds pretty good to me. Speaking of going to amazing places, here's my next question to you. We touched on this in the intro. You say travel heals. Okay. Now, I was just thinking upon this. I bet many think that after one gets a serious health diagnosis and then they hit the road, some would say they're running away from the problem, right? So for you, how does travel heal?
Well, I think there is an element of running away, but running away isn't always bad, in that maybe it gives you time to pause and think a little bit. I think for me, travel heals in that it puts me in different environments. It allows me to go through paradigm shifts, see things differently, see different people and cultures. And I think all that is incredibly valuable, because you realize your one rigid view of the world really isn't very real at all.
I think one of the conundrums with a serious health diagnosis is that it gets it feels like your world's collapsing in. With a cancer diagnosis, it's like everything is sucked into a black hole. Yeah, so again, and that's I think a normal reaction to something that may be dire. But I think along your point there, Pat, is that travel expands.
Yes,
it pulls you out of that blackness and into a more expansive view of the world, and then it evolves. It can be the catalyst for more choices to be made, better choices. Made. Yeah. So,
it's right. Interesting, Pat, that you're saying running away can be a good thing, and get you. I'm paraphrasing, but thinking differently. I was kind of told that I was running away after I got the cancer diagnosis, and I didn't do treatment for 6 months because I was thinking it through. I was looking at studies, I was reading, I was learning all about my diagnosis. And one thing I was told the whole time is by the doctors is, your tumor is growing every day. And it's like, well, it's not, because I'm feeling it. And I know it's not. And actually, that was I'm so happy that I made that choice to really learn about what was happening to me and make a really mindful, decision about treatment. And actually, when they finally measured the tumor, it shrunk during those 6 months. So that was a real huge positive for me.
Yeah, I have an interesting experience in terms of waiting as well. My particular lymphoma is slow growing, but comes back. So they treat it, it comes back. They treat it, it comes back. But I took some time to research the cancer, and also to look at options to chemo, because I really did not want to do chemotherapy. And it was very interesting. I applied to a clinical trial at Stanford, and I was rejected. And the reason I was rejected was because they had misdiagnosed my cancer.
What do you know?
That's a new one.
Yeah, well, yeah. Oh, that's sad.
Well, no, it turned out to my benefit in many ways.
Say,
oh, good. Oh, I see.
Yeah, I mean, it was, she didn't qualify for
I never would have found out they'd misdiagnosed it if I hadn't applied. And later the trial was shut down because they had issues with their approach. So overall, it turned out to be a good thing, but it was devastating because I'd spent 6 months or so doing all this research, trying to figure out the best way to go. And the rug just got yanked right out from underneath me. And I think that's a really common experience when you start getting into illness, is that all of a sudden you think you know where you're going. Control. That's a joke. And boom, everything changes.
It's like we make our plans and God laughs.
I think that often happens with cancer, and again with chronic pain. Early with somebody's journey into chronic pain. I know for our first 4 or 5 years, the rug must have been
the first
pulled out from under us multiple times. Thinking all that research, all that time, trying to figure out this thing that's going on with us.
Right? It was never going to happen.
Complex regional pain syndrome or RSD, but trying to figure it out. And every time you thought you got to something, they're right. They would, the door would shut, and it's pretty rough to deal with that process. And
then finally,
you do apply so much hope to it each time.
That's true, and I think we finally stopped hoping in a way, and we started hoping in a different way. We started looking at our lives differently. Like, hey, you know what? I remember saying to you, if I'm still looking for a cure, I'm going to be 85 and still looking for a cure. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
And that's when I finally said, why don't we go on with our lives, move to LA, and work with what we've got,
And I know recently one of our colleagues gave us a great tagline, and she said, ever since I've given up hope, I've felt so much better. And the point is, it's not to give up. It's not to give up. You're not giving up. You're giving up the expectation that there is going to be an answer right around the corner, especially with chronic pain. And obviously in some regards for cancer, but it's, I think hope it's kind of a two-edged sword sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. So I'm going to quote you, Pat, and you have spoken to this. I know when people say that to me, like,
that's right. Can't run away from it.
Was it a good day? So you've spoken to this a bit, but I want to hear more about it. So you say, every day we make choices in the food we eat, the thoughts we think, and the people we associate with. I call it our matrix. Can you just explain a little bit more what you mean by matrix and what's going on in your wallet, your matrix? Just hit me. It's going on in your matrix.
Well, I think we have a lot of control, my search for control, in terms of our life. And part of that control is, how do we construct our lives? Do we construct it with good energy, with healthy energy, or not? And so the idea of having healthy food, whatever that works out to be for you, I tend towards lots of vegetables and some fish, and all those leafy greens and good things, all those good things. But you're making a conscious choice, and that starts to create what I call your matrix, which is the sum of all these decisions you make that constitute your world. I think what you think is particularly important, because if you're going to be negative or self-critical or down, that's going to define your reality. If you decide you're comfortable taking some chances, changing some things around, finding something, anything, the smallest thing to be grateful for, that will change your perspective. And that plays into the matrix again of what creates your world. And I think that finally the people in your world are incredibly important. I think chronic disease and cancer and problems like this really are an opportunity to decide what energy do you want in your life. And it's also an opportunity to get rid of the people who are not supportive, who do not have good energy, because you really do not need that in your life when you're dealing with illness of any sort.
Well said. I think we practice. We have a lot of the same. We're making the same kind of health choices. And when I got my diagnosis, we changed our diet and we eat very similar to what you're saying. I even have nuts every afternoon. We had berries in our oatmeal. We had that this morning. Nuts. And we'll have salmon tonight. But it's also like to move. Like I love to move and exercise. And all through chemotherapy, the doctors said you'll never be able to do it. Such a neat idea. I never missed a swim or ballet Pilates or Feldenkrais. That was so important for me. And also what you're saying, well, stress management, being around really positive people, thinking positively. And I mean, everything you're saying is like some stuff things that I'm working on as well. And I even I didn't sleep well for like 20 years before I got that cancer diagnosis. Now except for the last several nights because of some scanxiety, but it's okay. I'm sleeping better than I have in 20 years. And that's because my sleep hygiene is so much better.
Right.
So, I mean, I actually think you can take advantage of a diagnosis like cancer and actually make yourself healthier. So,
and I think a lot of these things are predicated on practice also. It's something,
true.
You can't just, it's something that you need to reaffirm and recommit to every day. It's something that is, you're going to turn this around in one day. I think it's something to recommit to in terms of mindfulness, in terms of the food you eat, in terms of, the company you keep. That's something you need to continuously re-up every day.
And I love your gratitude piece, Pat. It's so important. Every day I start my meditation with prayer, and I'm praying to the universe. Anyone who listen, but I always find so many things to be grateful for. And people say to me a lot, you're so positive, but you're so sick. And it's like, but it's really the way you look at it and the way you react to it. So I love what you're saying. I always do. So I'm very curious, the pain cancer connection. I'm curious about the pain that you've dealt with, Pat, as a result of, all the cancer treatment that you've had. And I remember when we first had a conversation on the phone. It was long and a really great conversation. And I was making a decision. I was just finishing up chemo. You're laughing at me. And I never
has long conversations with anybody. It's just no.
And no, I'm just going to lose my thought.
I'm sorry.
So
see.
And
oh.
So I've lost it.
Okay, so, I want to go back to something that you said.
Go.
I want to go back to something that you said.
Thank you.
You're talking about how the need for to bring all these changes into our lives. It does not happen overnight, and it is not always easy. It is a matter of baby steps. And one of the things I would tell people, like changing a diet can be really hard for some people. So I would say, try one new thing every week. If you've never had Swiss chard, try some Swiss chard. Okay. Make it this week. If you like it, keep it. If you don't like it, don't keep it. Do something else next week. And all of a sudden, if you keep just half the things that you've tried or a third of the things that you've tried, think in 12 months how much change you've brought into your life. And you'll find by bringing these new things in, old things will just fall away. And I think the key to change, whether it's, in terms of meditation, eating, exercise, whatever it is to make really small goals and build on them. I think making big goals is too much for most of us. And the other thing I would say is at the end of the month, stop and write down how much you've accomplished. You will be amazed because we go through all these changes and it just seems like we're going nowhere sometimes. But if you stop and actually write down what you've accomplished, you'll be stunned.
I love that. So we don't have to do it in a day. Rome wasn't built in a day, right?
Yeah, right.
No, but we have to be better to ourselves. I don't like all the negative self-talk we've got, and I don't think that you're going to say, okay, I'm going to turn every negative thought into a positive one overnight. It's not gonna happen. So really good advice, Pat. I think I remembered my thoughts. So when we were talking that first time, I was making a decision. I was finishing up chemotherapy and making a decision about whether to do the standard of care treatment, because I'd learned that you actually had a better chance of survival if you didn't. And I remember you said, well, as you're making that decision, you have to also think about all the joint pain you're going to have from chemo. And I thought, no, I can't have that be possible. So now I'm dealing with this really severe joint pain all through my body. And I'm curious as to about the pain. First of all, if you have any advice, but also just the joint pain that you've dealt with. Are you still dealing with it? And also, do you have any other long-term pain, Pat, from all of the cancer treatment?
For me, it has been it's been joint oriented. My joints went berserk. My hip failed just after my last round of chemo. And of course, they said it had nothing to do with the chemo. And I'm like, are you serious? Get real.
Yeah. I've been told that too.
Yeah. Then I had complications from hip surgery. So it's kind of been one thing after the other. And the joint stuff really is not a lot of fun. It has changed my life. I can't play the sports I used to play. I can't ski. I sometimes, depending on how I'm doing, I can have some trouble hiking, but I keep pushing, I keep doing things. But one of the good things that's come out of it is I got into photography. I never would have done that because I was always much more involved in being active in outdoors. And I'm still active in outdoors as much as I can be. But photography really changed my world. It filled a huge void. And the reason I bring that up is I think that when we lose something, if we can be patient and so also hardworking about it, something new can come up. I was on a beach in Florida one day, and I took a picture of this little bird walking along, a sanderling walking along the beach. And for me, at that point in time, as a total beginner, it was a good picture. It had this cute little bird. The picture had nice warm tones, lots of bokeh in the background. And I looked at it and I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. And that picture actually set me off on an interest in photography, which I've been working at it for a number of years now. And the difference, I mean, it's very satisfying to see your skills progress. I look back at some of those old pictures and it's like, oh, they're terrible. But that's good. That's good. You're learning and you're progressing. But I never would have had that in my life had I not lost some other things.
That's really inspiring. That got me to cry. Yeah, so true. Yeah, you seem to always be able to turn a negative into a positive. You find something good or something different.
Yeah, but don't think it's pretty along the way. It's not pretty. It's pretty ugly.
Well said.
Oh, yeah.
And it's hard and it takes time and you have to stick with it and you have down days and you have times when you just think I'm going to quit. But if you quit, you will never get to the end of it. You'll never win. So you can't quit because you'll never know the outcome. You have to keep pushing on. And it is not easy. And some days, you know what? Some days you walk away and you say, I'm just taking this afternoon off. I've had it. I'll wake up tomorrow fresh. I get up early, about 5 or 5:30, and I'll attack everything tomorrow.
Because when I get really depressed,
that's really true.
I go to bed. I'm like, I'm going to bed. And I think I'm just giving up. And by the time I get out of bed, I've always got a new idea. and I look at the clock and it's been like an hour and 10 minutes. I'm like, wow, I gave up for an hour and 10 minutes, but I came up with ideas. I did that. I think it's so important to let ourselves grieve and let ourselves just be down. It's like, do we always have to be feeling great?
You got to give yourself a break every now and then. I mean,
that's exactly it. And I think when you get tired, take a break. I'm a big fan of naps. I have limited energy. Nobody would know that, but I do. And I get tired. And when I get tired, I set my alarm for like 25 minutes and I lie down and I take a nap and I wake up, I'm refreshed and I'm ready to roll.
That's great. I need to learn how to nap. He's really good at that.
I'm
it's like, Johnny, you awake yet? I can't nap.
The famous power naps, these tiny micro naps that, you can get 10, 15 minutes.
If I stop talking for 5 minutes, he'll get one.
If she stops talking, I get it in. Yeah. You do often. And she does. And the point is that it completely resets my energy level when I do that. But
I do that in the morning when we wake up and we talk for a little bit and I'm asleep again. I feel like that's almost like a little nap.
And this was, I was going to talk about tyranny of something else, but there is a tyranny of doing. There's this thing we trap ourselves in, for folks that are quote unquote doers. And I think there's a tyranny that comes with that we every day has to be productive or some such nonsense. I torture myself with that. Right.
What am I doing it's Sunday and I'm just like relaxing. And I'm finally realizing that it's okay to relax on Sunday. Yeah. It's a good thing because I'm recharging and I feel better on Monday.
I think this applies to everyone, but I mean, it especially applies to people going through a serious health condition.
Yeah.
So and doers, it's
yeah.
again, this concept of it's okay to slack off every now and then.
And it's actually good for us.
Yeah, it is. There you go. No, Pat, do I understand this right? Were you or are you an aviator?
Yeah, I have a pilot's license.
Thank you. Okay,
so,
good.
We didn't know.
I'm thinking,
we just learned this.
I know I saw this. I read this. So, okay, good. Oh, thank God, because I was going to think I had to reconfigure this question.
Are you an aviator?
Okay, because this is fascinating.
See, she's a doer.
I mean, when I mean aviator, that means you actually fly planes. So that is, wild in my book. And because I'm kind of feet on the ground type of guy. I just, though I love flying, I like somebody else to fly the plane. So that's fantastic. Congratulations. So A, what got you into flying? And B, has being an aviator, has that given you, thinking back, has it given you a unique perspective on health and healing? Because we tout through our organization For Grace, women following their passions, toward and as a means to healing. So has it given you a place of healing, this aviatorship thing?
Flying is a game changer for me anyway. It was. I learned. I was going through a very difficult divorce, and I took off cross country to visit some friends. And in the back of my mind, I thought, I'm going to move. I just need a change of scenery. And I was out in Calistoga, California. This was years ago now. And there used to be an airstrip, a grass airstrip in the middle of the town. And there was a sign that said glider rides. And I didn't really think anything of it. I woke up the next day and I thought, oh, let's give this a go. I'll go for a glider ride. And they didn't start until 11 in the morning. And I wanted to get back to San Francisco, but I thought, I'll wait. And I went for a ride. It was neat, but I didn't think twice about it, really. It was fun. And I went back east. And I heard about a bunch of lawyers that flew out of a private airfield. And I invited myself out for a 3-day weekend. I flew my face off, and I was totally hooked. And that just started a path in aviation that I never could have imagined, that has taken me cross country, has taught me so many lessons, taught me courage, perseverance, many things, and an incredible attachment to nature. I like to fly sailplanes. Those are high performance gliders, no engine, and fly them long distances, hundreds of miles, that kind of thing. So really, it's only your imagination that keeps the airplane up. You have to search for invisible sources of lift and use them to gain altitude and then run with that. It's just an absolutely magical experience. And the experience I most like to share is I was flying over Tahoe one day, about 17,000 feet. And Lake Tahoe is just beautiful. It's sapphire and turquoise waters. It's gorgeous. And at the end of my wing is a winglet, a little, kind of sticks up just a little bit at the end of the wing. And I banked the plane 15 meters of 50 feet of wingspan. And I balanced that little winglet, which is about this big, that big, on a bubble of air. And I rode it. I rode that bubble of air up through the sky with the sun streaming in, the beautiful water below. And it was a moment of total connection and eternity. It was just incredible. I can't explain how amazing it is to soar on the breath of the earth over mountain ranges. And these planes go fast. You can travel 150, 60 miles an hour. You will travel for always at that speed, but they move. They respond to the air, they climb. It is probably the most fantastic set of experiences I have ever had and ever will have. Even
better than that great scene in Out of Africa. I mean, that was
Pat, so you're saying
oh my gosh,
we're at 17,000 feet in a glider without an engine
on a
bubble. Okay, I think that's amazing. That's phenomenal.
30,000 feet is easy to do in a wave window.
Okay, not for us. You had me with finance. I'm completely blown away.
Talk about trust. Talk about having to trust your physical, the physical earth and environment you're around.
But also you have a partnership.
You have a conversation with it. You're having a conversation with it at the same time.
So to me that feels like control again. That's finding control.
It is,
and also having. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it is control, and it's also letting go of control.
Oh my goodness!
And trusting in your ability to navigate, and in the benevolence of the sky. You pray to the sky gods a lot, but in the benevolence of the sky to help provide you the energy you need.
So maybe it's not so much control that we're looking for. It's we're looking to let go of control.
We have to let go. We ultimately have to let go because control is an illusion. It's a total illusion.
Wow, I'm learning a lot today.
And that goes back to being present moment, because that's all you have. And the decisions in the present moment is truly the only control that you have.
That's what I've heard.
I feel like I'm taking a class and I'm taking it in. I keep getting goosebumps. I want to go to something kind of dark, but actually you might not think of this as dark, and we both love dark.
Dark is okay.
Okay. I'm thinking, wow. Okay, so this is funny for me to ask this now. Okay, so do you, 12 years into cancer and everything you've been through, are you at peace with your mortality?
Oh, very much so, yes.
I thought you were going to say that. Wow. So do you feel like you're a part of something that's bigger than yourself?
I do, and I think it's really important to cultivate that. I've been so fortunate with Bump in the Road, to interview amazing people. I learned so much from them. I think I don't have any favorites. I love them all. One of the most interesting, this will go back to what we were talking about with flying and control and everything else. One very interesting person I interviewed was Mary Neal. She's an orthopedic spine surgeon. She headed up the USC spine service for years and then moved up to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, with her husband, who's also a surgeon. They were kayaking in Chile, and she drowned and died and had a near-death experience. And she fought the experience for a long time, and because she's a scientist, she's linear. She wasn't thinking in terms of these great spiritual concepts or anything. And it took her many years to come to terms with it. But one of the things that she said that really hit me hard was she moved from hope to trust. From hope to trust. I found that to be so profound.
That is profound. And you've told me that before, and I was going to hold on to that, and I haven't, and I'm going to do that now. Well, I spoke with you about it. Hope to trust. And John didn't understand what that meant. I understand what that means, to me anyway. It's really powerful.
Yeah, it's a total game changer. It changes the way you look at everything.
Yeah, I love that, to trust, and it's trusting yourself. It's trusting the universe. It's trusting kind of everything in a way.
Well, in her case, it was also a trust that for her there is a God and an afterlife, and it's very real. She experienced it. So she moved in a sense of her spirituality from hoping it's so to absolutely knowing it's so.
Wow. Okay. I want to be there. I want to live in trust.
Trust is trust is a hard nut, but I think
that's really
hard. What's critical about trust is, again, trusting your own instincts, trusting your own agency, trusting your own, what's, again, right for you. And I think that's where people run afoul in many aspects of life, not trusting their own instincts. And that's especially imperative when going into healthcare, because I think, unfortunately, I think there's not a lot to trust in healthcare, because there's so many agendas there. There's the financial and the legal and all this stuff that's involved with it, and there's agendas and personalities and things like that.
Hubris.
I think again that's imperative to to maintain that level of trust with yourself and know what's in your best interest. And I think a lot of people give that up pretty quick, in a lot of parts of their lives.
That is powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems you run into with healthcare is it's so siloed. You see the oncologist for this, you see the orthopod for this, you see the radiation person for this. And as a patient, you feel like there is no overarching mechanism that connects any of it. You are left on your own to figure it out, to chase it down. And if you're lucky, you might have a doctor to talk to somewhere along the way.
And I think, yeah, exactly. And I think, I think people lose their perspective on, the hub of healthcare should be them. They should be, all things should flow through you. And I think, again, a lot of times people hand over the hub to their care provider as being the one that's everything's going to flow, healing's going to flow through them. I mean, again, healing flows if I think you put yourself in the center of all, and again, I know we're not big on control, but I mean, this idea.
I kind of still am. I still can't hold on.
I mean,
I'm trying to let go.
You can maintain control, but it's about trusting yourself. You are the hub of your own healing adventure, and I think again that's where we go wrong. I think a lot of people hand over the hub to somebody else, and there you go. Is it me? Am I next? Okay. So I think we've touched on this in bits and pieces over the course of the conversation.
I like that we keep going. We keep hitting the same points. And I love this conversation.
This is good. So, I think so I know we have talked about, we have used the P word, which is, what do you think about the need to stay positive when, faced with a bump in the road? For instance, like a potentially terminal diagnosis with an ass-kicking, treatment regimen. Is positivity, the most important thing, or
how important is it?
Or whatever.
Is being positive important when you get a really bad diagnosis? How important is it, if at all?
I think feeling whatever you're feeling is really important. And I would break positivity down into some other components. One that comes to mind would be gratitude again. In very difficult situations, I at least have found finding things to be grateful for makes such a difference. You can still be scared, upset, depressed, but you can be grateful. And I think maybe gratitude over positivity, or as a part of positivity, is important. I don't think you can be positive all the time, but I think that what you have to avoid is getting yourself into a rut where everything's bad, everything's wrong, everything's negative. And I'm not saying that positivity is a panacea. I don't think it is, but I do think that getting into that rut is death. It is psychological death. It is spiritual death, and it may lead to your own death. And I think that.
Yeah. Wow. This is deep. Yeah. So when I got my cancer diagnosis, everybody, and their mother, told me you just have to be positive, and I kind of thought it's like a platitude, sort of. Yeah. It makes you feel better. Yeah. But so then I asked a colleague, I was on the phone with him, and he's a doctor who specializes in pain and cancer. And I said, yeah, how important is positivity? And he said, or how important is the positive thing? And he said, he kind of laughed and took a couple beats, and he said, be authentic, Cynthia. And that helped me so much, because I was putting so much energy into being positive, and the being authentic, it brought me to positivity so much, and gratitude, like you're saying. But I didn't like the phoniness of having to be positive. So yeah, that helped me so much. And I also love
the obligation
to make everybody else feel good. And I remember he also said to me, if I were you, I can't even say what he said, but I would hate the world right now. And it's like, let yourself feel that, what's wrong with that? And I also love grateful. There's always something to have gratitude for, always. And Charlotte's saying faithful and grateful.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. I like that.
That's a great combination.
Yeah, but the gratitude, I agree with you, Pat. It's just so important. And I've been going through a rough time just very recently. And one day I sat down, I started my meditation. I'm like, John, I can't find anything to be grateful. And then I was just so down. And then I'm like, I'm living in a beautiful place. I've got shelter. I've got a wonderful meal today. I've got John. I've got wonderful, all the people in my life. And I started really thinking about it and just, you're down. But that doesn't mean you're not grateful. But that rarely happens. Usually it's like, I can't stop. I'm thanking the universe for things, and half an hour has gone by. So I mean, gratitude helps me so much. So I really appreciate you saying that, Pat. I appreciate everything you teach us.
I think gratitude is one of those things that teaches us to reach deep and possibly change the way we see the world. And it is not always easy. I find 5 things to be grateful for every day before I meditate. And they have to be different every day. So I can't just keep repeating
you can't cheat.
Ones, right?
Yeah. I know, because I do that too, 5.
Yeah.
And then it's 10, and you just, and then, and this and this.
And have you found that to be an easy practice to come up with 5 every day?
It's a wonderful practice. It sets a tone for your day. And I think it sets a pattern for your thinking. Everybody has hard times. Everybody has bad days. You will never get away from that. That is the way life is. But I think that particularly when you're in those hard times, if you can stop and be grateful, it provides a little bit more balance. Because one of the things I always say, that I have at least learned through these years, is I don't think you can know light until you know dark. You can't know happiness until you know sad. I think we have to go through these very difficult extremes sometimes to appreciate what's on the other side.
Yep, I think you're right.
I'll second that emotion for sure.
Pat, switching gears a little bit, how important do you think it is for people who have been through serious illness to at some point move on? Is it okay to not move on, or do you think we need to move on? How important is moving on to you?
I think learning the lessons that come out of it is really important. And I think in learning the lessons, it allows you to move on.
It's really well said. That's very interesting, because the reason I thought of this question is I see so many people get stuck in, it makes me sad, in illness and
the identity of illness.
Yeah, the identity, but yes, this is my identity is I'm sick. I can't do anything anymore. I'm angry. I'm going to say it. I'm going to take medication. I'm going to self-medicate. I didn't say the O word, but I think a lot of opioids are taken. I did say the O word. Okay. I think a lot of opioids are taken to self-medicate. It's about depression so often, and which is so sad. And I recently, I don't really like support groups, but I attended one by Zoom or by phone it was. And it was a cancer support group, and I really liked the person who was hosting it. But I thought, wow, these people went through cancer 10 years ago, some of them even 20 years ago, and it felt so stuck. And I thought, wow, I'm going through it now. And I just, it made me really sad. And the person who was running that support group said, but we have to be okay for people who get stuck. And I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can inspire people to learn the lessons and be able to move on.
That's the $1 million question, quite honestly. And it fascinates me. I mean, I know I've told you about this. Let me tell our audience. I interviewed Eric Weinmaier. Eric went blind when he was 16 years old and went through a period, as you can imagine, of being angry, isolated, the whole thing. Eric went on to climb Mount Everest, the 7 summits, and he kayaked the rapids of the Colorado River. He founded an organization called No Barriers, which addresses, he lives what he calls a no barriers life. But what Eric does is he takes the world and he divides it into 3 groups, okay? And the groups are fluid. You can move between any of the designations. One group are quitters. That's self-evident. A large group in the middle are campers. And the campers are people who don't want to change the status quo. They don't want to rock the boat. They want things to stay the way they are. And then relatively few people are climbers. And climbers can become campers, and campers can become climbers. But I'm fascinated by what does it take to move from being a camper to a climber. I'm just fascinated by that. I think that's what underlies a lot of my bump stories. What is it? Is it finally hitting a wall where you just can't take anymore? You've had it. You know you have to change. I think that's the way it is for many of us. I don't think change comes easily, generally speaking, but I think that once you get into the habit of change, it's so much easier and life starts to flow a lot better.
Mount Everest yet, but
Mount Everest blind. Can you imagine?
I know, but I do think I'm a climber, and I'm really curious. I feel like I was just born to climb. I don't.
Maybe we can roll to the top of Mount Whitney. How about that? Go ahead.
I would like to do that.
Okay.
I'm curious, Pat, and I've asked a lot of people this question on this show. When you take a tragedy and you turn it into triumph for other people. And I just think I know I brought this up earlier, but that's so uncommon. And it's just like, I'm so inspired by it. And I'm wondering where that comes from. Is that something that you learned? Is it something you were born with? Is it a fire within, a mantra, or do you know?
Well, no, good question. I think I'm fascinated by other people's stories, and I like stories that are essentially the hero's journey. All the stories that I tell are essentially the hero's journey. When I was young, everybody thought I would write, but I went to business school, and it was a practical decision. I knew I could make a good living, but it's interesting that with all the things that have happened to me in the last 10 or 15 years, I've come back to that original love of writing. I write, I do the podcast, I'm working on a book. It's very interesting to see how things kind of come full circle. So in answer to your question, I think that some of it has always been within me, but perhaps some of the bumps that I've hit have caused me to dig deep, return to my roots, and take a totally different path.
You are incredible, Pat. Thank you so much for being our guest. So thank you we learned so much. I have notes because I'm going to study them. Seriously, I always do when we talk. And thank you.
I'm going to send you flying stories.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. And the conference, I mean, it just was so amazing.
I'm never going to get in a glider. That's for sure. But that's okay. I think it's the most amazing thing I've ever heard in my life.
I know. That was the best story I think that I've ever heard. Right. Thank you for putting such a beautiful bow on our conference, Pat. Thank you for this wonderful interview, and everyone, please go check out the conference.
Yeah, check out the conference. It's wonderful. Fantastic. Pat's presentation, again, draws heavily on her Bump in the Road podcast. So, and I can't talk enough about the podcast itself. It's just amazing stories. You'll be inspired for sure.
And thank you everyone for joining us today. We learned so much from Pat Wetzel about the pain cancer connection. Gosh, I hope we all took notes
from you.
And oh my gosh. And thank you. Come back and join us again next month. Things are gonna be different, and so it'll be a surprise. It's a surprise. Thank you, John, for co-hosting.
Oh, hi, my pleasure. And thank you. What's your name again? Oh, Cynthia. Yeah, Cynthia. And
that crazy.
And I tell you, also big thanks to Camera Roland, our wonderful.
Thank you, Camera. We love you so much,
video
Camera.
Producer out in ether space. Who, if we wasn't there, the whole thing would go to hell in a handbasket. So thank you so much.
Not with Pat as our guest.
No, Pat was great, but so is Camera.
Just a reminder that until we see you next, there's still a pandemic going on. There's a pandemic going. There's a pandemic going. We are potting. So let's all be until we see each other next. Let's all be safe.
Be well. Be well.
Be well and be mighty. Thank you.
Thank you all.